Today on Steve Brown, etc., it's just us, and we're going to join together and wave goodbye and good riddance to 2020.
He's an old white guy, an author, broadcaster, and seminary professor who's sick of religion. And he's brought friends. Please welcome Steve Brown, etc.
Hey, we are so glad you're here. You always have a place at our table. We're not supposed to say this, but we had a guest scheduled and something happened technically in the heavens. And all of a sudden we're sitting here looking at each other and thinking, what could we talk about? And then somebody had a bright light go off over their head, and they said, you know, this is the end of the year. We could cuss and spit about what happened in 20 and applaud the incoming new year, because it can't. I probably shouldn't even say that. It can't be worse than 220. I mean, what? I just thought of some things.
Yeah.
Surely it won't be worse than 2020. And by the way, my name's Steve. I am the aforementioned old white guy. Matthew Porter, our executive producer, is with us. And like COVID, probably Bill will be with us into 21 and maybe the foreseeable future.
No vaccine power right there.
Our video director, John Myers, is in the tech bunker. John is now in the magical time period between his Christmas light show and its end, and just before the power bill arrives. We drove over to John's house the other night, and man, I'll tell you, it makes Disney look like they're amateurs. It was so cool. And but I was thinking, even as I was watching, we're going to have to give him a raise or he's not going to be able to pay for the power used in this light show. And then our producer, Jinx, is in his good old glass booth. He's working hard to make sure that we sound as good as we look. That's a hard task, isn't it?
Wait, to sound good or as good as you look?
Look good.
Oh, well, I don't know. Don fixes that part.
Look as good as we sound. That's true with me, especially. God gave me this voice that's wonderful. And whenever people see what I look like, they are absolutely shocked. First, I'm a lot older than I sound. And I'm a lot uglier than I sound because I sound like the Marlboro Man. And
hey, listen,
Jinx can't fix that.
You had a birthday since the last time we recorded a program. So how do you feel? Do you feel like really, really old now, or what?
No, I was really, really old before the birthday.
Well, no, I know, but now you're even really older.
But now you're an octogenarian.
Including you on this broadcast.
Yeah, but see, you have a whole new term now that you've never been able to use before.
Yeah.
You are now an octogenarian.
I knew that.
That's a term?
Does that mean you only have 8 fingers now?
Is the president of Key Life. George is big on being inclusive. That's why he welcomes donations from all sizes to keylife.org so you can give. And Cathy Wyatt is the soft, feminine side of the program. Cathy, do I have to wait all the way until my next birthday to get another one of those great blueberry pies you made yesterday?
It all depends.
So good.
It all depends on how nice you are.
I'm always nice. What do you mean? Well, as I said in the introduction, this has not been the best of all years. This is the craziest. I've lived a long time, and I've gone through some crazy times. When I was really young, I went through the polio epidemic when they closed down the world. And that was a lot worse than this because everybody knew that you could die. You got a 97% opportunity to recover. If you get COVID, you get polio, man, something bad's going to fall on that. You're either going to die or you're going to be crippled or deformed for the rest of your life. And I can remember being shut down. Everything was shut down. So, but it wasn't crazy like this. And then you throw in an election where families are divided and people have stopped speaking to each other. And Christian civility has gone out the window, and sweet Mayberry ladies are making obscene gestures at each other. And you kind of wonder what in the world is happening. And then as you move into it, you don't know who to believe about all this. Some say we're all going to die, deal with it. And some say, listen, it's no big deal. It's a crock. And others say we got to go another 6 months, even 2 years wearing this stupid mask. And depending on who you listen to, and then they're beginning to give frontline workers the vaccine, which has got to be good. Except you've got some people who say, I'm not going to take it. And if you're not going to take it because you're anti-vaccine and I die, my wife will sue you because it will be your fault because you didn't protect everybody else around you because of your spurious juvenile views on vaccines. And Brown, other than that, what do you think about it? I'm going to be the first in line when they eventually get it. You guys, you glad to see it leave?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not gone yet, so I'm like.
I mean, yes.
I don't want to give it an opportunity.
Yeah, I think I think it's going to be around in some form, but hopefully it's more like the flu of like there are procedures and things in place, and it's a manageable condition.
Talking about COVID, I find it really interesting. And I'm not saying that it's not bad because it is. And I do wear a mask and I do try to do social distancing. And for the first time in my life, I've been washing my hands and, that kind of thing. But with all that being said, you get these statistics on almost all the news websites. And you get the thing at the bottom of the screen on news programs telling you about the thousands that are getting it and who's dying. And nobody hardly ever puts anything on the screen suggesting the incredible recovery rate with this. They did a study at Johns Hopkins, and they found out that other than the first month of COVID, when the death rate really did go up, that the death rate across America has remained stable, the same as it always is. But nobody's going to tell us that because that hurts ratings and it messes with political plans, and it really does irritate me because there is a sense, again, I'm not saying this that it isn't bad, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist or that it is a crock, because I don't believe that. I think it's really some bad stuff. But with all of that being said, it is also manufactured hysteria. And it seems to me that the people who manufacture it have a responsibility to also manufacture some peace, to manufacture something that makes us feel a little bit better. That study from Johns Hopkins was immediately forced down and removed its post because it didn't fit the narrative. And that makes me angry, and I'm already angry. So you add more to it. But at any rate, with that all being said, now I feel a lot better. I mean, angry people, when they get to express it and hurt others, they always feel better because the venting is a healthy thing for somebody like me. But we are moving. You guys have New Year's resolutions, and do you make New Year's resolutions, and do you keep them, Cathy? You don't even make them?
Oh, no, I make them every year, and then I watch them just fly away. Yeah.
Wait a second. Wait, you seem to be like on a really healthy kind of thing. I mean, I don't know how radical that is, but you've been really successful, I think, with all of that. Right?
That's true. Amazingly so.
Well, it's 17 seconds in this section here, so I think we can just go right to commercial break here.
Eating right the Cathy way on the other side of the break.
And then we will center in on Cathy on the.
No, we will not.
Did you swim
Cathy's
this
rants
morning?
aren't safe for radio.
What?
Are your
Did you
rants not
swim
safe?
this morning?
I did.
That's what we mean.
It was really nice. Water was really
How many
warm.
of the rest of us went swimming at 5 o'clock this morning?
Speaking of John's,
be a person who keeps your resolution, or you wouldn't do it.
Listen, speaking of John's electric bill, wait to see mine with the pool heater.
I bet. Guys, I have no idea what's going to come next, but it will be brilliant. The discussion will be titillating. It will be a wonderful segment in this talk show. And so if you were thinking about touching that dial, don't. We're going to take a break, and we're coming back. You're listening to Steve Brown, etc., and we're just sitting around at the beginning of the year talking about the beginning of the year. And we're looking back over 20, and we have voted, and we have decided that we're all glad that this year is over. And I suggested earlier that it can't be worse in 21. And then I thought, oh, yeah, it really could be worse, but I hope it won't, because, this one has just about done me in. And then we got into a discussion kind of beginning about New Year's resolutions, and Cathy made the confession, because confession is good for the soul, that she makes a lot of resolutions, but she doesn't keep them. And then Matthew, I'm just catching you up if you've just joined us, and then Matthew pointed out that wasn't entirely true. And then I asked Cathy if she went swimming this morning, and she said she did, and she's done it almost every day in the middle of the election, the middle of COVID. No matter how she was feeling, she got up. Was that a New Year's resolution last year?
No.
So it's just a resolution, not necessarily a New Year's resolution.
A new fiscal year resolution, maybe.
There you go.
Ooh, sure. Okay.
Physical year resolution.
Nice.
Do you ever think about what keeps you doing that?
I have no idea.
But you do it.
I've said this, you and I have talked about this kind of stuff for years and years and years. If I could have figured out a lot of years ago why anybody, whatever change it is they decide they're going to make in their life, you get up one morning and you say, I'm going to do this, and you do it. And then the next day you do it, and the next day you do it. And then for the next 47 days after that, you don't do it. If I could figure out how you keep that going, whether you want to call it a New Year's resolution or whatever it is, a change. If I could figure out how to keep that going, I would have been a very, very wealthy woman, and I wouldn't have needed this job. because I would have had a lot of money, but I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is. And I know that I think it's a pretty safe thing to say for anybody that, it's like I had a family member who was an alcoholic. And after going to AA, they used to talk about how they knew that they were, one drink away from, being drunk again. And I think that's true with all of us, with anything that we deal with. Anything can happen at any time that can change. And so I don't know why. I honestly don't. When I look at my no, I am not
disciplined.
No, because that would imply it's like when you always say, like people write books on marriage, the 10 ways to have a successful marriage, burn it because, something bad's going to happen. There's just, exactly.
But with all that being said, you really have been amazing, and I'm proud of you for the way you've done it, the discipline that you've done. Maybe it was a God thing.
Well, that's the only explanation for any change in any of us, isn't it?
That's true. And you got to remember, yesterday I answered an email, a regular letter from a listener to our regular broadcast, who thanked me, and it was a moving letter. It was sad. George, I had you read it too. You saw it, I think. Mm-hmm. A guy who's a teacher whose father was an addict, drug and alcohol, who discovered through Key Life the message of God's grace, that the people who get better are people who know that if they don't get better, that Jesus will still love them. And he said his father, who, by the way, he said was his closest friend and his mentor, had died of an overdose recently. And then he went on to describe what happened and how his father would listen to Key Life. And the only thing he had to hold on to was the grace that we taught at this ministry. And then this young man whose father had died, and he's a teacher, thanked us for what that had meant to him too. So at the beginning of New Year's, it wouldn't be bad for us to remind people that it's good to make resolutions. Hopefully they're godly resolutions. Hopefully those resolutions, if fulfilled, would make you more and more like Jesus. But it's good to remember that if you don't fulfill them, if, as Cathy said, you go the first 2 days and then the next 48, you lose it, that Jesus doesn't love you any less than he did when you weren't even making resolutions. And
that's the hard part.
Yeah,
and that's the really hard part.
I know,
because
to remember.
we all want to say, if I just do better, God will be happier with me.
Yeah, it really
So
is. When
you don't, it's like, well, and it's like God sitting up there saying, oh, and I had such high hopes for you. No.
Yeah. It's not that way. And I have to, and I'm supposed to be a teacher of this stuff. I mean, I think it at least once a day. And I have to open up the words of the Bible, maybe even Martin Luther, to remind myself that I'm still acceptable and that God will never say, I can't believe you did that. I've had it with you. And this is it. Never, ever. That's kind of cool. Makes you want to go out and sin.
That's why I became a Lutheran. That's why I became a Lutheran.
That's right. You've only been a Lutheran for a month, and you're a fanatic about it.
I know, right?
A thing on your car about it.
I know. Can you believe that?
When you were Presbyterian.
I know. I didn't.
Yeah, it just wasn't meant to be, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it was never color coordinated right. This was a lot better. So.
Oh, a lot prettier. So it has to do not with convictions.
Nah.
But with cosmetics.
That's right. Makes
Matthew,
me look better.
Do you make resolutions?
Yeah, I made a resolution at the beginning of this year, and I'm happy to say I achieved it. My goal was to eat with the control and discretion of a campsite raccoon until I packed on an extra 20 pounds. And look, I don't want to brag, but I nailed that goal like mid-year. And if I could do it, anybody can do it, so. But
next year,
that brings up a new set of goals for 2021.
Yeah, next year it's garbage dumpster level.
I need to change course.
Guys, it's surprising how fast the time goes when you're having fun. When we get back, I will question George Bingham and Jinx, and if I can get John to talk, even John, see if they make resolutions. And I will expect them to be quite serious. Nobody on this program has been serious yet. So, a raccoon, Matthew, good night. I'm giving up okra liver. That's my resolution for the coming year.
You never ate it anyway.
And I'm going to keep it perfectly. Hey, you're listening to Steve Brown, etc., by the way, and we have a free email we send out once a week. And frankly, it's not half bad. It's called Key Life Connection. Why not give it a try? You can just go to keylife.org/subscribe and ask us to send you the Key Life Connection, and you will be blessed at least once a week. We're talking about New Year's resolution. Jinx, do you make New Year's resolution? Why don't you make a resolution to get a haircut?
I actually have one scheduled, so yeah.
Is it the annual one?
Don't you dare.
My wife cuts my hair about every 3 to 6 months, just depending on.
Just so that it can go down to your belt. She's not going to give you a buzz cut, right?
No. Just got to trim it up, square the ends up, get it all nice and pretty.
That hair could be the source of his strength, and we don't even know.
It is. It's the only thing.
I think there was a story about this somewhere.
Yeah, Samson.
Deal with the Philistines with short hair.
I'll handle it.
Do you make resolutions?
Not in the traditional sense, but normally about 3/4 of the way through the year, I decide what I'm not going to do again next year.
A lot to be said for that.
Yeah,
that's a good plan.
Switch a resolution. I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to do that. Right. I do that all the time.
The best one I think that I've ever made, and I've done my absolute best to keep with just the smallest amount of cheating this year, is that we don't take any new projects after Thanksgiving. That was after I almost got killed by my wife for finishing a server install about 11:30 Christmas Eve one year.
Oh my!
Yeah. And since we're closed the week between Christmas and New Year's, it was extra messed up. But I just don't do that anymore. So we're doing our absolute best to finish the installs we have before the end of the year and get a little more rest next year. That's my other resolution that sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't.
That works. That's kind
more
of
rest.
I like that.
It's easy
Matthew,
to be
what
busy.
about? No, I already talked to you. You're going to eat like a raccoon.
That was last year.
Last year.
Yeah, I checked that off. I succeeded with that one.
But
now
be serious. Do you make resolutions?
I'm more of a goal person. So it's more of like, yes, I would love to do this, but for everything on that list of stuff I would like to do, I need to see a plan. I need to see what are the habits. And so, the whole thing of, goal with a deadline. I like making it more actionable versus a wish list that somebody who looks a lot like you is supposed to fulfill down the road.
That's good. And that's probably the reason most people don't keep resolutions. It's because they're not practical and they're not doable, and they've never kept them in the past. And why do they think they're going to keep them this year? But if they would sit down and be intentional the way you are to make resolutions that are doable, then set out a plan to keep them. Man, what an intriguing thought. I might try that.
There's a quote I heard that says, everything is difficult to the unwilling.
Yeah.
And the times where I've really struggled with, a choice or a habit or something or other, being honest, I've had to honestly go, you know what? I never actually made my mind up to do that. Once you get it in your head that this is absolutely going to happen, your choices start to follow that.
That's true. John, do you have, John is not, I don't think, on camera. He's in his bunker, making sure that we're doing all right. John, you make resolutions?
No, I don't make any resolutions.
Well, that is a quick answer.
Took care of that, didn't it?
I just don't. It just, I find that, I just don't make any resolutions.
Is it because your years never end? They just morph into the next one? There's
Pretty
no
much.
real-
Yeah. I don't make a closure. Well, I just don't make a closure on things. I just keep on trucking.
You never make them. You never
That's
break them.
my
true.
life's verse is Ecclesiastes 9:10. Whatever your hand finds to do, just do it. I'm not, and contrary to you, Matthew, I'm not a goal-oriented person. I play life like poker. And as the cards are dealt, I do my best. Sometimes I'm the pigeon, and sometimes I'm the statue, sometimes the windshield, and sometimes the bug. So sometimes I do okay, and other times I don't, but I'm still here, and Jesus still loves me. George, do you make resolutions?
No, nothing real formal. End of the year always ends up being, and especially with Key Life, it gets into such a sort of a hectic time. There isn't necessarily, that's not really the time for, reflecting on the previous year and going on to the new year. I think to the extent that I do, sort of goal orientation, more along the lines of maybe what Matthew does, but probably even less endpoint oriented, more like, maybe more like the alcoholic approach. It's like, okay, I got to do it one more day. And if I do it one more day, maybe I'll be more likely to do it the next day and go one step at a time.
Guys, this is a gathering place for cynics. I don't think anybody is really clear on the resolutions that are sure that they're going to finish with them. But we will pursue our guilt concerning that particular subject. Guilt and Forgiveness. That would be a good title for a book. Let us think about it, have some cookies and milk, and rest up. And then, like Jesus, we're going to return. You're listening to Steve Brown, etc.
Are you sure?
I was going to ask the
No,
same
I'm
thing.
not. I keep forgetting, but I'm 80. Listen,
I
got
know.
an
wait.
excuse.
You know what?
So
That's
you're-
going to be the new excuse for everything. I'm 80.
I would drop that at every moment.
He said that
What do you
before the
want?
show.
Guys,
I'm 80. It's all a victory lap after this.
Steve said that before the show, and I misheard him. I thought he said, I made it, which I just went along with.
Equally true.
If you don't take our Key Life digital magazine, you ought to get it. It's really good, and you'll like it. Every once in a while, we send out a hard copy of that, but it's easier to do when we do it on the net. So if you'll give us check at Key Life, not a check. Well, you can send that check.
That's okay.
Check out
Let's see where this goes.
.org. You can
was
send a
subliminal
check
stuff.
too. KeyLife.org/digital magazine. We'll make sure that you get it. There's another subject about resolutions in the beginning of the year, and it may be even more extant this year than most years, given what 2020 has been like. It's been awful, crazy. Lots of things we didn't expect would ever happen have happened. And so it's been a hard year. And then you get at the beginning of another year and you think, well, it can't be worse. And then you think, well, maybe it could be worse. And so there's the factor at the beginning of the year when you look back and you look ahead. And sometimes when you look ahead, it's an element of fear because you don't know what's going to happen next week or next month or the next 6 months. And when I said it couldn't be worse than 20, it could be a lot worse than 20. We don't have any promises of rose gardens. And Jesus said this, he said, in this world, you're going to have tribulations. In other words, this is not a safe place. And one of the great problems with our culture is that people think it should be. And if something bad goes wrong, somebody's to blame. And so the lawyers get rich. And the nonsense about living in a safe world gets perpetuated on everybody. And then something bad happens, and you can't blame somebody else. It's just plain bad. It's dark, and it brings forth tears. As you think about the coming year, do you guys think about I could be hit by a bakery truck or something this year, or maybe I won't be able to pay the mortgage, or maybe I'll lose my job, or maybe people will shame me, or et cetera, et cetera.
If I get hit by a bakery truck,
Yeah,
I know my wife would say, I told him the carbs were going to kill him. And there he is.
Bakery truck.
Bakery truck. What a way to go.
A bakery truck?
But it's a fear, when we're together and you talk, when we're all doing fine. I mean, we're alive and kicking. We're not sure about Zach. He didn't show. Maybe the bakery truck got him on the way here. I don't know.
Zach just got done being a pastor through Christmas.
I know.
He needs a break.
I know. Listen, I get that.
I'm not even ordained and I need a break.
I knew something bad wouldn't happen to him. Something bad wouldn't happen to somebody that nice. But is there, as you begin to think about, there's an element of fear that's involved in this?
I don't know. For me, it's not fear, but it's more of like kind of a gratitude kind of mixed with humility of like, even if you're not going to die or get hit by something, what you would assume would happen maybe is a lot more up in the air with the COVID stuff and everything else and economically and all these kinds of things. And I think, when I sit down and you're at the table with your family and you're like, this moment is more than I ever deserved. And it's a gift, and you can look ahead to the future, but just to go just with you people right here and to share a meal, to worship with somebody, to whatever, there's just feeling like this is good. This is great. What am I waiting for? A sports car? I mean, this is it. This is the good stuff. And to go, I never deserved this. And thank you. And be interesting to see if I get something like this tomorrow. Who knows?
That makes you a Christian existentialist. Live in the moment. Do you think sometimes people miss the good stuff, like having dinner with your family and the laughter and the joy of that kind of time, because either of fear or hopes of something in the future, always living out there rather than living in the moment?
I think comparison is the enemy of happiness. And we typically think of that, of comparing ourselves to others. This person's more spiritually mature. This person's more successful. What about comparing yourself and your life to the way you thought it would be? That's still comparing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and that's still going to suck the joy right out of your life. I know in the last couple of years with people leaving our lives forever, it just puts a different perspective on things. You're like, why am I mad at this person? Why am I getting upset? This does not matter apart from the bruising that it does to my own stupid ego. Suck it up, make things right, and enjoy what you've been given. And that's the sermon to me.
Anybody ever tell you you'd make a great preacher?
I'll leave that to the professionals.
You know, God has called you.
We could get ordained together.
But you never know. You could make a buck preaching. That's good.
Listen, I've been poor for a long time, so maybe that's God preparing me for the pastor life.
George, is your life turned out the way you thought it was going to?
Yeah, not even close.
It's all coming together.
Yeah. Well, and although, probably like with most people, in some ways, a lot better, in some ways, falling short. And it did, even looking at it from a global level, as much of a struggle as 2020 has been for so many, and it's been a lot worse for others than for us in a lot of ways. There are still some good things that happened, and some responses to the difficulties. Even something as desperately needed as the vaccine, and other times there's no way it would have come that soon. I think there certainly are some things to look at as, some good things will happen even in the tough times.
That's a good reminder. Sometimes it's hard to remember that, and it's hard to see the good things because the bad things seem so very, very bad. We don't laugh at jokes anymore. We don't enjoy a milkshake or a beer. We don't sit around with our family and think it doesn't get any better than this. Good mixed with the bad. I suspect that's always been true, and it'll be true in the coming year also. You've been listening to Steve Brown, etc. We've been just sitting around. Our guest was not able to show, and we hope everything's okay. And we all sort of like each other, so we decided to just turn on the cameras and microphones and sit around and talk a little bit about New Year's. And we certainly hope for you that you'll have a great 2021. And we hope that the best thing that happened in 2020 will be like the worst thing that happens in 2021. George reminded us that there'll be some good things that'll happen no matter how bad it gets. And there'll be some bad things that happen no matter how good it is. And the comfort is to know that there's a sovereign God who rules over it all. He is, as it were, the celestial poker dealer. And he deals the cards. And all things, this is always true of poker, but it's true of life. All things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. I try to keep that in mind. It helps. At least sometimes it helps. Cathy, who's going to be on next?
I was just thinking as I was looking around at everybody's face, it's been a very, very long time since we all sat together in the studio and did this. We're all apart from each other, but I just, I'm really I'm grateful. I look at all your faces and I'm just so grateful and so thankful that, that we're still, together and a part of each other. And even in the midst of this year, which had the potential to just throw everything out the window. But anyway, next week, everybody's on vacation. So we're doing a re-air, and we chose our we think probably universally our most favorite show, right, Matthew?
For 2020, this was the one that has gotten the most views and the most response so far. John Eldridge talking about managing our time and kind of creating some sanity in the midst of the craziness. I think it's the right book at the right time. It literally came out at the beginning of all the COVID stuff. And so as it happens, that landed on a time I got to guest host. And that was one of the highlights of 2020. One of the good.
Deleted my social media accounts on the air.
Nice.
It's a great book and a great episode. Y'all make sure and check that out.
All right. Be sure to join us next week. We won't be here, but we hope you will be. We'll be out partying on vacation. But between now and then, don't do anything we wouldn't do. And that gives you a wide, wide berth.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye 2020.